Am I the asshole for not implementing extremely strict religious rules for a child's pool party? My husband's family are very strict, conservative Christians, think not allowing women to wear pants or cut hair, etc. We are not religious and don't go to church. Our child, 7 female, has a summer birthday and this year asked if she could have a pool party with family and friends from school, male and female. My husband mentioned to his parents that we are planning a pool party and they immediately mentioned that we have to implement the restrictions they placed on their kids for swimming. Girls wearing long sleeves and swimming skirts, no male and female swimming together even if related, a partition put around the pool to block the swimmers from view. They said that nobody in the family would be able to come and participate if these measures aren't taken because it's inappropriate and they would be taking part in leading others to sin. They would also like for their preacher to be invited to the party. This is extremely impractical for many reasons and I refuse to entertain any of these ideas. But my husband is waffling because of ingrained conditioning and approval seeking as he's the only sibling to turn from their religion. They expect unrelated guests to also conform to these standards and his sister has been sending me links to appropriate swimwear for the girls invited and saying we can just ask that instead of gifts parents purchase these for their daughters to wear. His father and brother have offered to put up the partition as their gift to my daughter. My mother-in-law has offered to make swimwear for those who can't afford it as a gift to my daughter. His entire family keeps sending us biblical quotes about modesty and not leading people astray. My husband is wearing down and wants to try to compromise, arguing that following these guidelines isn't going to hurt anyone while I say that it's an unreasonable expectation. Children should be able to just have fun and a party where all of the kids can't play together is weird and defeats the purpose. It's also unreasonable to expect guests to comply and our daughter will pay the price because she won't have friends show up. If we can't compromise, he wants to tell our daughter she needs to pick a non-swimming party because his mom and grandma are calling him crying that we will be excluding them if they can't come and they're only asking a few things. Am I the asshole for not conceding to these demands? Edit. The responses here were validating and I shared them with my husband, who began crying and begging me to go along to get along. This time and next time we will establish boundaries. This turned into an argument and I made it very clear that I refuse to budge, and he can either be in their family or ours but not both. When we were married, we eloped while in college. They were devastated and tried to force a church-approved wedding. They had an intervention for us with the church elders but he and I held fast and refused to comply. During the argument I pressed him about why he was willing to have a backbone then and not now. He finally admitted after a lot of questioning that he made peace at the time behind my back by promising his family and the elders that he would work on me and bring us all into the church by the time that our future children were old enough to baptize. He says he only promised this as a way to get them off his back and get time to figure out what to do, and that he kept putting standing up to them off and now he's run out of time because they're expecting him to fall in line. I am so disgusted by him right now that I can't even look at him. I called and made reservations at a local water park for a children's birthday party on my own credit card and he doesn't have the information since he ruined the pool party plans by sharing them with his terrible family. I texted his entire family, and him, to let them know that plans have changed and they are no longer invited to my daughter's birthday and that no matter what they've been led to believe neither me or my child will ever be joining their church. I then blocked everyone from his side on my phone, social media, and email. I hear his phone blowing up and he's locked himself in our room sobbing, although he comes out periodically to shuffle around looking forlorn and asking me not to leave him. Once my daughter comes home from school we will be spending a few fun days out of town with my family because eventually they're going to come here causing drama and I don't want to deal with them. I told my husband that he should take this time to decide his priorities. AITA. Guess they aren't coming to the party. ETA. Not that you should have to appease them at all, but could you have a separate gathering that doesn't involve swimming that they could be invited to? Not the asshole. Why WBTA if you give in and conform to any one of those ridiculous requests? Not the asshole. Your daughter is turning 8. She should have no need to be modest like that. Her friends should have no need to be modest like that, and what you will inevitably end up doing is ostracizing them. Your in-laws can celebrate later with your daughter if they like. Not the asshole, not at all. These demands are ridiculous and all it will serve to do is embarrass your daughter and additionally the guests. AITA. No one is allowed to force religion or beliefs or customs on anyone. Your daughter will suffer because her friends and the parents aren't going to deal with it and she's gonna be stuck with just his weird family. Don't do this. Am I the asshole for moving out after my parents told me to pay rent? This story happened almost a year back, and when I told my friends about this, they said I should post it here because they were split 50-50. So I 19M moved out of my parents' house about a year ago. There was nothing wrong in my life. I had a good upbringing. I loved being home. I had a lot of friends and my parents were loving. Or so I thought. Anyways, I was going to have a big 18th birthday as it is the legal age where I stay, Australia, and means you go from boy to man, child to adult. I had a venue rented out and I had family and friends coming from all over to celebrate with me. We had a blast that night. I had my first drink and almost made it my last. I don't remember anything from that night, but from the photos I seen, it looked like I had a good night, so I was happy. A few days after that night, my parents sat me down to have a talk. They told me that I'm a man now and that I've been working a lot of hours and yet they haven't received anything. They told me that as soon as I started working, they expected me to help pay rent. Obviously I didn't know any of that because I didn't get told. They told me that I should have known better, but now that I'm 18, they expect me to help me with rent. Honestly, I didn't mind helping them if they asked. I was 16 when I got my first job at McDonald's and am now working in construction. But they made it seem like I was in the wrong for not giving them money. And I get where they are coming from, but from a young boy's perspective, all I saw was green. All I saw was a triple-digit paycheck that I wanted to spend straight away. Anyways, I told them I'd start helping them from now on, but it wasn't good enough for them. They told me that I had to pay them back all the money that I should have given them when I first started working, which was almost $10K. I said no flat out and they got mad. They told me that either I pay rent and pay them back what they are owed or I move out and find my own place. So that's what I did. I moved out a few days after to my friend's house for a bit, until I found my own apartment and have been living here for about 8–10 months. As soon as I moved out I got bombarded with calls and texts saying that I disrespected by not paying them what they owe and making it harder for them to live now that they don't have someone washing or doing their laundry, taking out their rubbish and all those little stuff. They are both in their early 40s and more than capable of doing it. My friends asked me why I never introduced them to my parents and told them what I've told you. Some of them already hated my parents and some of them said that it was my duty as their son. I honestly didn't know I had to give them money or help out. I would have if they asked, but I feel like they just disrespected and tried to gaslight me into giving them money. I just need to know if AITA or not. A lot of people have asked me what my cultural background is and if it has something to do with my situation. My mother is from Chile and my dad is Samoa. As I know of, both cultures do expect help, but mostly in the form of chores and keeping the house clean. It isn't until you're 18 and still living there that you are expected to pay rent. I do have siblings and they had jobs before they were 18 too. They were never made to pay rent before they were 18, nor did my parents ask for backdated rent. Just wanted to clear up the air with some frequently asked questions. Edit 2. As some of you pointed out, it is to my better judgment that I should have helped out without having to be told. I will take that as a fault of mine. But what I won't accept and can now clearly see that backdating rent to a minor, which is already bad in itself, will never be acceptable, and I stand firm on my decision of not paying and moving out. I do however have a family dinner in a few days with my parents and siblings, so if anyone wants an update after that then I'll be happy to make one. Thank you all for the help and support. It makes me happy knowing that I made the right choice and to have unbiased opinions on this matter. Less than 3. Either pay up or move out. Okay, I'm moving out. How dare you? Not the asshole. In most countries, parents are legally obligated to support their minor children. Trying to charge you for your childhood is a scam that you're entitled to ignore. You have no obligation at all to repay them, and getting away from them was truly your best move. Not the asshole. Rent is one thing, but back rent is ridiculous. They were taking advantage of you. Not the asshole. It's their job to pay for their child until they're of legal age. They aren't the government, they don't need back taxes from you. They gave you the option to move out, so you did. They can't fault you for that, and no one should. Sounds like they effed around and found out. Not the asshole. They decided to have a kid. It was their duty to provide a roof over your head plus food for the first 18 years of your life, so you don't owe them anything. The fact that you were helping with chores means you were not freeloading either, and you were helping as a member of the household. Now they decided to give you an ultimatum and you chose. They can be mad all they want, but they can only blame themselves. Am I the asshole for asking for a portion of the sale of my childhood home? Growing up, my mom was the breadwinner, worked in healthcare, and my dad was supplemental income. She probably made double his salary. My mom made the initial down payment on the house and was paying the mortgage for a few years before she met my dad. Then I'm assuming he helped pay, and the home was paid off when I was a kid. When I was a young teen, and my brother was a child, my mother passed away. I did not get an inheritance etc. set aside, or any money at the time. I was 15 and didn't know what to expect or what questions to ask. It really wasn't a thought. My mom always said that my and my brother's education were one of her #1 priorities, and she wanted us to go to school because it's something she didn't have the opportunity to do until later in life. When I was deciding where to go to college, I wanted to take a year off to work and save money, but my dad had said not to worry and that there was money saved up for me to go. Halfway through my degree he said the money ran out, gave me only 2 months' notice, so I had to frantically work and pull the means together to pay for my next semester's tuition. I was already working and paying my own rent and expenses while in school. I had to get an emergency loan to pay the tuition short notice. A similar thing happened to my brother, but he had even less of his education paid. I feel really guilty that I got more money than him. He couldn't make ends meet and had to drop out of school. An aside. I highly expect that he simply decided not to help my brother and I with education because he has new priorities with his new wife and her kids. Frustrating because if I knew years ago he wouldn't help with education I would have gone to a cheaper school. And also sad because his decision meant I got a lot more financial help than my brother. My dad now has a new wife and is selling our childhood home. I think my brother and I should get a portion of the sale because my mother paid for the majority of the home and my brother and I didn't get any inheritance when she passed. Especially because this money would allow my brother to go back to school, which would have been my mom's #1 priority. My dad and his wife don't think we should get any, and that any inheritance we should have got was already spent on raising us. My dad is relatively reserved and hasn't said much, but his wife told me off for being selfish. She used really inappropriate and aggressive language, but it would be immediately recognizable if I have an exact quote. They think it should all go to them, and that I'm a brat for asking. Am I the asshole for feeling entitled to some portion of the childhood home sale? Edit. I'm aware that legally I have no stake in it, but I do feel like I should be given part of it, which is why I asked. Edit. My mother's will explicitly states every asset go to the guardian of my children. That would be my father at the time of her death. I feel this shows that her priority was her children, and that we should continue to have some level of benefit from the sale of the home, even though I'm aware that legally it does belong to my dad. Edit. Sorry, I realize it's unclear. I'm asking if I'm the asshole for asking. I feel like I should get some, but asking was what resulted in me being called a brat. I did not explain to my father why I felt I deserved anything. I asked if I would get any money from the proceeds of the sale. Not the asshole. That type of wording, guardian of my children, usually has a trust attached to it. Meaning, the property is to be used for the benefit of the children. It may be worth your time to have the will reviewed by a lawyer to ensure your father is entitled to the property. Not the asshole. Were your parents legally married? If so, the house likely belongs to your dad to do with it what he pleases. If not, that house may actually be yours and your brother's. Paying towards the mortgage does not put your name on the deed, which is what details ownership. You are the asshole. You are not your own guardian. The funds and proceeds were never meant for you. If they were, it would have been specifically spelled out. That's how wills work. You are being disrespectful and dishonoring your mom's wishes. Y'all got raised. You're entitled to nothing else. Request a copy of the will. I have mine set up with my separate not divorced ex that if one of us pass, our total estate is valued and on specific ages of the kids they receive a payout. Not the asshole. From reading the comments, it seems this is the end of your relationship with your father, and I'm sad about that for you. The legality of it is questionable due to your responses and comments. But as you said, you had no desire to contest it. You or your brother are a family of 2 now. Good luck. Am I the asshole? Missed the birth of my daughter. My wife and I recently had our second daughter. A beautiful little girl. I'll tell the story, but it's longish. Okay, so I guess I'll start with my job. I am currently employed as a correctional officer in a max security prison. I deal with some of the worst people in the world. Murders, rapists, gangbangers, serial killers, etc. I regularly do 16-hour shifts. Usually back to back to back. My record was 6 16-hour shifts in a row. Due to the way my schedule works, I tend to have long weekends. 3-4 days. I take my full weekends with the family and work 16-hour shifts on my regular days. Sometimes picking up an extra 16 here and there, when it was feasible and we had nothing going on. My wife has been pregnant for the past 34 weeks. She is also a stay-at-home mom. She had pre-existing medical conditions that caused this to be a very rough pregnancy. We live in an incredibly small town and the only adequate hospital is 4 hours away. This has placed an incredible financial burden on us. Luckily I have good insurance, and her family also have insurance on her. But with the rising price of gas and food and making these trips at least every 2 weeks has been expensive. But I didn't miss a single appointment. I went to them all. Due to these trips, my work schedule, and my wife's declining health, our house turned into a disgusting place to live. Completely inadequate to raise our children in. Due to the way my job handles overtime, I can elect to take it as pay, or put it into my leave pool. This has been a very delicate balance to make sure our bills are paid, and make sure I have adequate leave for the baby. So now comes the asshole part. I missed the birth of my child. And my mother-in-law thinks my wife should leave me over it. I am currently cleaning our house to a spit shine. My daughter is in the NICU. If I were to leave and go be with my family, I would get about 2-3 weeks off paid. But I wouldn't be able to do anything. The baby would still be in the NICU. By staying I am able to clean our house, continue to build up leave, make sure our checks are more than adequate. On top of all that, I will be able to take May 8, July 6 off of work. All completely paid. I would only work about 10 days those 2 months. I figured it would be better to take the time off with my family when they are home. Then to burn it now. Edit for clarification. My wife is in full support of what we are doing. Her mother was at the birth and her health is no longer in decline. Baby is completely healthy. Just needs to get bigger before we bring her home. Wife is currently recovering, no one is in any danger of dying. Edit 2. I missed the birth due to having very short notice. We knew the baby would be a preemie. The doctor said the planned C-section date was May 11. I had every intention of being there. Already scheduled the time off work. I was given about 2-3 hour notice to make a 4-hour drive. I have not met the baby yet, but I am keeping in almost constant contact with my wife. In the meantime I am working to keep a roof over our head and cleaning to give them a healthy environment to come home to. Info. What does your wife think? Is this a decision the two of you made together? I understand wanting to do the utilitarian thing here. But if your wife is afraid for her life or the baby's life, it might be more important to have you there for emotional support. If your wife is begging you to come and you refuse, then YTA. If you made this decision together but her mom is pitching a fit about it because she doesn't agree, NTA. Edit. Not the asshole. Not the asshole. If Mill was so concerned, why wasn't she helping to keep the house clean? If you and your wife are in agreement, then there's no conflict here. Ask her to handle her mother. Congratulations on the new addition to the family. Not the asshole. There's only one person who's able to make that judgment, and that is the mother of your baby. She says not the asshole, so it's not the asshole. Not the asshole. This sounds like quite the balance, and there's likely no correct answer on what you should do. But I don't think you're an asshole for trying to do what you think is best.